What happens when country music's golden girl walks into the lion's den and finds herself facing the most hostile interview of her career? Today, we're diving into the explosive confrontation that left Carrie Underwood shaken, the View panel divided, and millions of viewers picking sides. This is the story of how one morning show appearance turned into a career-defining moment that nobody saw coming. The morning started like any other at the View Studios in New York City. Carrie Underwood was scheduled for a routine promotional appearance to discuss her latest album and upcoming tour. The show's producers had booked her to boost ratings with her mainstream appeal. Whoopi Goldberg opened the show with her usual energy, introducing the panel and briefly mentioning their upcoming guest. The conversation before Carrie's entrance was surprisingly tame, focusing on light topics. But a subtle tension lingered, especially in the way Joy Behar glanced at her notes and the slight edge in Whoopi's voice when she mentioned their guest. When the commercial break ended, Whoopi's introduction was warm. Our next guest is a country music superstar with multiple Grammy Awards and millions of fans worldwide. Please welcome Carrie Underwood. The audience applauded enthusiastically as Carrie walked out, her smile bright and professional. She settled into the guest chair and exchanged pleasantries with the panel. "Thank you so much for having me," Carrie said, her voice carrying that familiar Oklahoma warmth. "It's always great to be in New York." Joy Behar leaned forward, her expression friendly, but with a calculating look in her eyes. "Carrie, we're so excited to have you here. Your new album has been getting amazing reviews." "Thank you. That means the world to me," Carrie replied, clearly in her comfort zone. "This album was really personal for me. I spent a lot of time writing songs that reflected where I am in my life right now, both as an artist and as a person." For the next few minutes, the conversation flowed smoothly. Carrie discussed her creative process and excitement for the tour. Her responses were polished, but genuine. Another host, Sunny Hostin, asked about the inspiration for the title track, and Sarah Haynes jumped in with questions about balancing career and family life, topics Carrie handled with practiced ease. The audience was clearly enjoying the conversation. Everything seemed to be going exactly as planned. Then, Joy Behar's expression shifted. She glanced down at her notes, then back up at Carrie with a look that seasoned viewers would recognize immediately, the look that precedes a memorable confrontation. Carrie Joy began, her tone still conversational, but with an edge creeping in. "Your music has always resonated with a pretty specific demographic, country music fans, particularly in certain parts of the country. How do you feel about the responsibility that comes with having that kind of influence?" The question caught Carrie slightly off guard. It wasn't the direction she had expected. "Well," Carrie said carefully, "I've always believed that music should bring people together. I try to write songs that speak to universal experiences: love, heartbreak, family, faith." Joy nodded, but her follow-up came quickly. "But don't you think there's more to it than that? I mean, your fan base is pretty concentrated in red states, rural areas, places where certain political views are, shall we say, more popular." The studio grew quieter. Whoopi glanced at Joy with a warning look, while the other panelists shifted, uncomfortably. Carrie's smile remained, but her shoulders tensed. "I don't really think about politics when I'm writing music," Carrie responded diplomatically. "My job is to entertain people, to give them something that speaks to their hearts. Music has always been about connecting with people on an emotional level, regardless of their background or beliefs." Joy leaned back in her chair, clearly not satisfied. "But surely you understand that your platform comes with influence. When you have millions of followers on social media, when you sell out arenas, people look to you for guidance. They want to know where you stand on the issues that matter," Joy pressed. Carrie took a deep breath. "I've always tried to keep my personal political views private. I think people come to my concerts to escape from all that, to just enjoy music. I don't want to alienate anyone." This was a standard diplomatic answer. But Joy was just getting started. "See, that's interesting," Joy said, her voice growing sharper. "Because staying neutral, staying silent, that's actually a choice too, isn't it? Especially when you're making millions of dollars from fans who might be voting against their own interests." Carrie's smile flickered. "I'm sorry. I'm not sure. I understand what you're getting at." Joy leaned forward. "What I'm getting at is this. Your music, your brand, it's all wrapped up in this wholesome, family values image. But when real issues come up, issues that affect your fans' lives, their healthcare, their jobs, their rights, you go mysteriously quiet." The other panelists were visibly uncomfortable. Whoopi tried to interject, but Joy was on a roll. "No, Whoopi, I think this is important because Carrie here has built her entire career on connecting with working-class Americans, people who trust her, who look up to her. And when those same people are being fed lies about elections, about vaccines, about climate change, she just stays in her lane and counts her money." Carrie's composure was being tested, but she maintained her professionalism. "Joy, with respect, I think you're making some assumptions about me and my fans that just aren't fair. I've never claimed to be a political figure. I'm an entertainer." "An entertainer," Joy repeated mockingly. "Right, just an entertainer who happens to perform at venues where Confederate flags wave in the parking lot. Just an entertainer whose concerts are basically Trump rallies with better music." The audience gasped audibly. Carrie's voice remained steady, but with steel underneath. "Now that's completely unfair, Joy. I have fans from all walks of life, from every political background. I perform for troops overseas, for disaster relief efforts. To suggest that I somehow endorse or encourage extremism is not only wrong, it's hurtful." Joy wasn't backing down. "Is it wrong, though? Because when your silence gives comfort to people who want to overturn elections, who want to deny women health care, who want to pretend climate change isn't real, how is that not a form of endorsement?" "My silence is an endorsement?" Carrie shot back, her Oklahoma accent becoming more pronounced. "My silence is respect for the fact that my fans are intelligent people who can make their own decisions without needing a country singer to tell them how to vote." Joy laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. "Intelligent people, right?" Joy scoffed. "The same intelligent people who think vaccines contain microchips and that the election was stolen. Those intelligent people?" Whoopi finally managed to break in, but Carrie cut her off. "No," Whoopi Carrie said, her voice now carrying real anger. "Let her finish. I want to hear exactly what Joy thinks about the millions of people who support my music." Joy was more than happy to oblige. "What I think, Carrie, is that you've made a calculated business decision to stay quiet on important issues, because you know the truth about your fan base. You know that if you came out and said that climate change is real, that vaccines save lives, that the election wasn't stolen, you'd lose money. So you stay quiet and let them believe whatever conspiracy theory makes them feel better." The studio was silent. Carrie stared at Joy for a long moment, and when she finally spoke, her voice was controlled but furious. "You want to know what I really think, Joy? I think you're sitting in your New York studio, making assumptions about people you've never met, dismissing millions of Americans as stupid conspiracy theorists because they don't share your political views. I think you've decided that anyone who lives outside of major cities, anyone who goes to church, anyone who values tradition, must be some kind of dangerous extremist." Joy tried to interrupt, but Carrie was just getting started. "You talk about my responsibility to use my platform, But what about your responsibility? You have a platform too, and you're using it right now to attack not just me, but everyone who enjoys my music. You're dividing people, creating hostility, making assumptions about character and intelligence based on geography and musical taste. The audience was completely riveted. This was not the polite, media-trained Carrie Underwood they were used to seeing. This was someone whose core values were being attacked, and she was fighting back. Joy regrouped quickly. I'm not attacking anyone, Carrie. I'm asking legitimate questions about the role of a celebrity in our democracy. When misinformation is tearing our country apart, don't you think people with influence have a responsibility to speak up? And who decides what constitutes misinformation? Carrie shot back. You, the media, and politicians, Carrie fired back. Because I've seen enough to know that what gets labeled as misinformation one day becomes accepted truth the next. I've seen enough to know that regular people, the people you seem to think are so easily manipulated, often have better instincts than the experts who talk down to them. Sunny Hostin tried to mediate. I think what Joy is trying to say is that with great influence comes great responsibility. Carrie turned to Sunny, her expression still intense. And I take that responsibility seriously, Sunny. But my responsibility is to my art, to my family, and to treating my fans with respect. Not to become a political pundit, just because I can carry a tune. Joy wasn't finished. But Carrie, surely, you can see how your silence on certain issues sends a message. They interpret it how they want to interpret it, Carrie replied. Just like you're interpreting it right now. You've decided that because I won't be your political spokesperson, I must be complicit in everything you disagree with. That's not fair, and it's not accurate. The tension in the room was suffocating. Joy gathered herself for what everyone sensed would be her biggest attack yet. She looked directly into Carrie's eyes. Fine, Carrie. Let's get specific then. Let's talk about what your silence really costs. She paused dramatically. Your silence costs lives, Carrie. When you have a platform that reaches millions of people, and you choose to stay quiet while misinformation spreads, people die. They die from preventable diseases because they won't get vaccinated. They die in acts of political violence because they believe lies. Your precious neutrality has a body count. The words hit the studio like a physical blow. The other panelists looked stunned. But if Joy expected Carrie to crumble, she was wrong. Carrie sat perfectly still, and when she spoke, her voice was quiet, but carried immense power. "How dare you?" she said, each word deliberate. "How dare you sit there and accuse me of having blood on my hands because I won't be your political puppet? You don't know me, Joy. You don't know my heart. And you certainly don't know the conversations I have with my family, my friends, and yes, my fans." Carrie held up her hand as Joy tried to interrupt. "No, you wanted to get specific. So let's get specific. You want to talk about responsibility? Let's talk about the responsibility of a television host who uses her platform to demonize half the country. Let's talk about the responsibility of someone who thinks she can judge the character of millions of people she's never met, based on their musical preferences." The energy in the room shifted completely. Carrie was no longer on the defensive. "You talk about misinformation, Joy, but what about the misinformation you're spreading right now? What about the lie that everyone who doesn't share your political views is somehow dangerous or stupid?" Joy's face was flushed. "I never said people were stupid, Carrie. I said they were being misled." "By who?" Carrie shot back. "By their pastors? By their neighbors? By their own experiences? Or just by anyone who doesn't get their information from the same sources you do. Because that's what this is really about, isn't it? It's not about responsibility or influence. It's about control. Sunny Hostin tried to interject, but Carrie turned. To her, her expression intense. Aren't they, Sunny? Because what I'm hearing is that I should use my platform to promote specific political viewpoints, and if I don't, I'm somehow responsible for everything bad that happens. That sounds like control to me. Joy had regained her composure. What you call control, I call civic responsibility. When you have influence, you have an obligation to use it for good. And who decides what's good? Carrie asked, her voice rising. You? The media? Politicians? I've got news for you, Joy. The people who listen to my music, they're not mindless sheep waiting for celebrities to tell them how to think. They're teachers and nurses and farmers and small business owners. They're military families and single mothers and grandparents trying to make sense of a world that seems to change every day. Joy leaned forward aggressively. Those same teachers and nurses and farmers are getting their medical advice from Facebook, memes and their political information from conspiracy websites. Don't you think someone with your influence should try to steer them toward reliable sources? Carrie's laugh was sharp and humorless. Reliable sources? You mean sources that agree with you? Because heaven forbid someone might look at the same information you have and come to a different conclusion. Some conclusions are objectively wrong, Carrie Joy insisted. The earth is round. Vaccines save lives. Climate change is real. These aren't matters of opinion, and I've never said otherwise, Carrie replied firmly. But what you're really upset about isn't that I'm spreading misinformation. It's that I'm not spreading your information. There's a difference. Whoopi finally managed to break in with more authority. Ladies, I think we're getting a little heated. Here. No, Whoopi Carrie said. I want to finish this because Joy accused me of having blood on my hands, and I think that deserves a response. She turned back to Joy, her next words cutting through the tension like a knife. You want to talk about responsibility? Let's talk about the responsibility of a media personality who thinks the best way to reach people is to insult them, to mock their beliefs, to dismiss their concerns as ignorance or bigotry. How many minds do you think you've changed with that approach, Joy? How many people have you brought over to your side by calling them stupid? Joy's mouth opened, but for once she seemed at a loss for words. Carrie pressed her advantage. Here's what I know about the people who listen to my music. They've been talked down to by politicians, by media, by celebrities for years. They've been told their values are outdated, their beliefs are dangerous, their concerns don't matter. And then they turn on the television and see someone like you confirming everything they already believed about how coastal elites really feel about them. The studio was dead silent. So, congratulations, Joy Carrie continued, her voice now carrying a mixture of anger and sadness. You've just spent the last 10 minutes proving to millions of people that everything they suspected about media bias and coastal contempt was absolutely right. If your goal was to change hearts and minds, you've failed spectacularly. If your goal was to drive people further apart, well, mission accomplished. Joy finally found her voice, but it lacked its usual confident edge. I wasn't trying to insult anyone, Carrie. I was trying to have an honest conversation about the role of public figures. Carrie shook her head slowly. No, Joy. You were trying to bully me into becoming your political spokesperson. And when I wouldn't play along, you decided to attack not just me, but everyone who supports my music. That's not an honest conversation. That's exactly the kind of behavior that makes people trust media less, not more. The The silence that followed Carrie's takedown stretched for an eternity. Joy, who had built her career on having the last word, sat speechless, her face a mixture of shock and fury. Whoopi Goldberg, a veteran of countless television confrontations, finally found her voice. "Well," she said, trying to inject some levity into the moment, "I think we've certainly had an honest conversation here." Sarah Haynes, desperate to salvage the situation, tried to pivot. "Carrie, maybe we could talk about your upcoming tour dates. Get back to why you're here today." Carrie turned to Sarah with a smile that was both gracious and sad. "You know what, Sarah? I think we've covered everything that needs to be covered today, but I do want to say something directly to your viewers." She looked straight into the camera. "To everyone watching this, I want you to know that I believe in you. I believe in your ability to think for yourselves, to make good decisions for your families, to care about your communities. I don't think you need celebrities or politicians or media personalities to tell you what to believe or how to vote. You're smart enough to figure that out on your own." She then addressed her fans specifically. "I respect you too much to pretend I have all the answers. I'm going to keep making music that hopefully speaks to your heart, and I'm going to trust you to make the decisions that are right for your life. That's not indifference. That's respect." Alyssa Farah Griffin, who had been mostly silent throughout the confrontation, finally spoke up. "Carrie, I think what you've said about respecting your audience is really important. Too often in politics and media, we do talk down to people instead of talking with them.